guys, today we're going to be talking a little bit about Sophie Cunningham and the Indiana Fever. And when it comes to the expansion draft, a lot of people are really shocked and are calling out, are being like, oh, if the Fever don't protect Sophie Cunningham, they're crazy. And there is a weird scenario that by protecting Sophie Cunningham, they are guaranteed.
Now let's look at the expansion team's perspective. If Toronto or Portland truly wanted Sophie Cunningham, the only way to force her onto their roster would be to use their one core designation, a Supermax level commitment. But that's not happening. Why? Because players like Eric Ogunbowale, Brianna Stewart, Brittany Sykes, and Natasha Cloud are expected to be available. Those are franchise faces. You don't spend your one guaranteed superstar acquisition on Sophie Cunningham when those names are on the board. So what happens instead? Expansion teams simply wait. They let Sophie go unprotected, avoid using a core designation, and then pursue her in free agency, which means protecting her doesn't actually protect her at all.
Let me explain why. It is the Michaela Timpson situation. There are 5 players on this team. And if you don't protect, you are guaranteed to lose. You are guaranteed. If you don't protect Caitlin Clark, she's obviously going to get taken. Aaliyah Boston, guaranteed to lose. You're guaranteed to lose Lexi Hull. Why? Because she becomes a restricted free agent, and whoever the expansion team gets her rights. You're guaranteed to lose Kelsey Mitchell because the expansion team is going to get Kelsey Mitchell and core Kelsey Mitchell because she's that level player. You're guaranteed to lose all of them.
Now think about what that means for Indiana's salary cap structure. Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and KK Timpson combined make just slightly more than a single veteran minimum contract. Let that sink in. Your franchise cornerstone, your all-star center, and a developing guard with playoff experience cost roughly the same as one veteran earning $350,000. That isn't just good value, it's a massive structural advantage. This is how championship rosters are built. Not by overpaying stars, but by stacking elite talent on team-friendly deals while using cap flexibility to build depth around them. Indiana right now has one of the most efficient young cores in the league from a financial standpoint. Losing one piece of that efficiency doesn't just hurt, it destabilizes everything else. This is the kind of advantage front offices spend years trying to manufacture. And once it's gone, you don't get it back.
Guaranteed to lose Michaela Timpson because Michaela Timpson is on a salary for the next 4 years where she makes $60K. And for everyone being like, oh no, the minimum contract, they all go up to minimum. No, they don't. No, they don't. It's a minimum new contract. All pre-CBA contracts are in effect until they end. There's a reason why other than Paige Beckers, every single college player who could have gone back for a 5th year went back for a 5th year. Every one of them, bar none. Anyone who had a chance to get into the 2026 WNBA draft instead of 2025 did. Other than Paige, because Paige makes millions outside of it. Why? Because their rookie deals start at $200.
This is where the conversation turns to KK Timpson and why her contract is quietly one of the most important in the entire league. She's locked into a 4-year deal at roughly $60,000 per season. And no, the new CBA doesn't magically fix that number. That's a misunderstanding a lot of fans have. Minimum salary increases only apply to new contracts signed under the new CBA. Existing deals remain unchanged until they expire. That's why players like Sedona Prince, Paige Buchers, and nearly every college player with remaining eligibility chose to stay in school for the 2026 draft. They understood the math. Rookie salaries are jumping from around $60,000 to well over $200,000 per year. That's a difference of roughly $140,000 annually. For Indiana, that means KK Timpson's contract isn't just cheap, it's irreplaceable. Losing her doesn't mean losing a rotation player. It means losing one of the last remaining below-market contracts in the league at a time when those contracts are about to disappear entirely.
KK Timpson's contract is essentially free. Like KK Timpson, Caitlin Clark, and Aaliyah Boston combined make up just over a vet minimum. They make up $50K over a vet minimum. The 3 of them combined. So with the 3 of them on the roster and that vet minimum contract, as far as I'm aware, Christy Wallace is probably going to be taken because of her contract. If the Fever...
And remember, Indiana already has major financial commitments coming. Lexi Hull is a restricted free agent. If Chicago or another team throws an $800,000 offer at her, Indiana has to match it or lose her. Kelsey Mitchell is getting cored at near Supermax money, close to $2 million. Before Indiana even looks at bench depth, almost half their cap is already committed. Every dollar matters from here on out.
Is an unrestricted free agent. The Fever could keep Sophie Cunningham and still lose her to an expansion team, as we saw from the Las Vegas Aces in 2025. They wasted one of their roster spots protections on Tiffany Hayes. Only for Tiffany Hayes to join the Valkyries anyway, because the Valkyries offered her a bunch of money. The reality is, if Toronto or any of these teams, if they want to give Sophie Cunningham a core designation max, they're going to take her in the draft, but they're not going to do that because...
This is where Sophie Cunningham's situation becomes complicated. Sophie is an unrestricted free agent, and that designation changes everything. Protecting her in the expansion draft does not guarantee she stays in Indiana. It only prevents her from being taken in the draft, not from leaving in free agency. We've already seen this exact scenario play out. The Las Vegas Aces used one of their protection spots on Tiffany Hayes, made her a priority, and kept her off the expansion board. And what happened? Hayes still signed with Golden State because they offered more money. Vegas effectively wasted a protection slot on a player they were going to lose anyway. Indiana understands that risk. Protecting Sophie doesn't create leverage. It doesn't lock her in. It simply delays the inevitable if another team is willing to outbid them. And that makes the protection decision far more dangerous than fans realize.
Expansion draft spot to take Sophie Cunningham, you can just go and get her. And if Sophie Cunningham wants to be in Toronto or Portland, she's going to be in Toronto or Portland. There's nothing the Fever can do, whether the Fever protect her or not. If she is going to sign for who is going to pay her the most money, there's a good chance Toronto or Portland are going to do it anyway. They're going to do it anyway. But they're probably not going to use their core designation. Why are they not going to use their core designation? Because each of them is only allowed one. They're only now one core designation player via the expansion draft, and the reality is that Arike is probably going to be in it, Azare Stevens is going to be in it, Brittany Sykes is going to be in it. There's going to be a lot of high-level players. I think Natasha Cloud is going to be in it. There is a lot of all-star level players that are going to be available in this expansion draft for that core designation.
At first glance, this decision looks completely insane. Not protecting Sophie Cunningham in the expansion draft sounds like front office malpractice if you don't stop and really think about it. Fans see a productive, experienced wing and immediately assume Indiana has lost its mind. But if you slow down and actually analyze the salary cap mechanics behind this move, something very different starts to emerge. This isn't chaos, it's calculation. What Indiana is doing here has almost nothing to do with Sophie Cunningham herself. In fact, Sophie is more of a secondary variable in a much larger financial equation. The real key to understanding this move lies with a second-year player making just $60,000 a season. That contract, not Sophie's name or production, is the hinge point for everything the Fever are trying to protect long-term. The expansion draft forces teams to think in reverse. It's not about who helps you the most today. It's about which contracts allow you to build the most complete roster tomorrow. Indiana isn't ignoring talent. They're prioritizing structural flexibility. And when you understand how rare and powerful a $60,000 multi-year contract is under the current CBA, the decision suddenly stops sounding reckless and starts looking uncomfortably smart.
Does not guarantee she stays with the Fever. In fact, protecting Sophie Cunningham might lessen the chance she stays with the Fever, because if KK Timpson's salary is off the books, and they have to replace swap a $70,000 contract for an equivalent player to KK Timpson, even as a vet, you're gonna have to pay $350K. Based on the way the salaries are looking, you're probably gonna have to pay about $350K. So that is $250,000 extra minimum that could have gone to Sophie Cunningham otherwise. Your salary cap, you lose $250,000 in your salary. But
losing KK Timpson creates a chain reaction most people aren't considering. If her $60,000 contract comes off the books, Indiana has to replace her minutes. And replacement-level veteran guards don't cost $60,000. They cost $350,000 at minimum. That's a nearly $300,000 swing in cap space. Money that could have gone directly toward keeping Sophie Cunningham now gets burned replacing a player you didn't need to lose in the first place. This is where the real damage happens, quietly, structurally, and permanently.
If the Indiana Fever, realistically, if the Indiana Fever want to keep their main five, which is Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, KK Timpson pretty much has to be on that team. Otherwise, you're keeping that five and getting nothing else. Because Lexi Hull is going to command, because she's a restricted free agent, they have to match what another team is willing to pay. So, She's a restricted free agent. There's a good chance a team like the Sky offer Alexi Hull 800k, with the max being $1 million. They Fever have to match that. The Fever have to super max out Kelsey Mitchell. That's nearly $2 million of their salary cap gone already. That's nearly $2 million of it gone.
To understand the pressure Indiana is under, you have to look at the roster reality they're facing heading into the expansion draft. The Fever don't have the luxury of protecting everyone who matters. There are 5 players on this roster who are essentially guaranteed losses if they aren't protected, and that's where the math becomes brutal. Caitlin Clark is an obvious lock. Leave her unprotected, and she's gone instantly. Same story with Aaliyah Boston. There's no scenario where Indiana risks losing a franchise center. Lexi Hull complicates things further because she's a restricted free agent. If she's taken in the expansion draft, the team that selects her controls her rights, completely shifting Indiana's leverage. Kelsey Mitchell is non-negotiable. She's a core designation-level player, supermax bound, and completely untouchable. Then there's the 5th name, NaLyssa Smith, the player people aren't talking about enough. Her value, age, and contract situation force Indiana to take her seriously as a protection candidate. But here's a problem. Protecting those 5 players leaves you with almost no margin for error. One wrong choice doesn't just cost you a player. It collapses your entire financial structure.
Here, what somewhat comparable, because there are teams that are going to offer Sophie Cunningham. One of these expansion teams could offer her 700-800k. One of these teams could offer her 700-800k. And if the funny thing is that the KK Timpson salary being there, having to replace KK Timpson loses you a bit of money. KK Timpson being there on the squad might be the difference between you being able to pay Sophie Cunningham 600k versus 300k while still building a team. And I think if you are paying, there's no way in hell Sophie Cunningham, if the Fever offer Sophie Cunningham, let's just say for argument's sake, $1 million is the salary cap, or is the max salary. It's not, it's going to be higher for argument's sake. If the Fever pay Sophie Cunningham within 350 to 400k of the max, I would assume there's a 0% chance